Waist Up Wardrobe is a podcast that is designed to help its audience dominate from behind the desk and create that outstanding Zoom room. And through the history of Waist Up Wardrobe, we have had topic after topic that has detailed every little thing that goes into creating an outstanding, successful virtual office from head to waist. But the most frequently asked question has been, Christine, where do I get started? So today in the Waist Up Wardrobe studio, I'm going to jumpstart you right into creating and getting started creating that virtual office that you can be proud of. And I'm going to do that by laying out 3 foundational building blocks, those 3 key things that you absolutely need in your virtual office to make it look on brand and feel great. So you know the drill. If you want to know what I have to say, you're going to have to stick around to find out. Welcome to Waist Up Wardrobe. I'm Christine Vartanian, a civil engineer and attorney turned personal style expert and image consultant. As the founder of Jade for All Seasons, I am passionate about unveiling the inner confidence of my clients by developing their personal style. But is getting dressed up still important in our virtual world? Well, that's where my experience can help with what I call Waist Up Wardrobe. Waist Up Wardrobe is a podcast for all things you need to conduct an outstanding Zoom meeting. It's about how to dress for the camera, but it's not just about the clothes. It's about everything you need to know to show up on brand and professionally for the camera. Join me in the Waist Up Wardrobe studio to discuss how to navigate this virtual world and dominate from behind the desk. Welcome, Virtual Nation. I'm so excited you're here again to be part of this great conversation. So we have had so many topics on Waist Up Wardrobe. This is episode 25, and I'm so proud that we've been able to really give our audience step-by-step ways of really dominating from behind the desk and creating a great virtual office or Zoom room. But today we're doing things a little bit differently. I have been asked so many times, Christine, all this information is so valuable, but I'm a little overwhelmed and I want to know where to get started. What are the things I absolutely need in my office to really look like I know what I'm doing? So today we're going to do just that. We're going to build out those 3 basic building blocks. What are those 3 main important things you need to do to create that amazing virtual office? And we're going to do that a little differently today because we're going to have a dialogue. My producer, Rick Moscoso, will be on live with me, and we're going to be having a dialogue around what those things are, what those necessary, essential things are that you really need to think about first to spring right into action. So I'm going to bring up Rick here from the production room. Hi, Rick. How are you?
Hey, Christine. Good morning.
Good morning. And today we have a really special show for everybody because we're going to make this into a dialogue and ask those really frequently asked questions about how to get started, how to get jump started into creating that dynamic virtual office. And I'm so glad you're here with me today because I think that this will make it, both of our minds together will come up with all those frequently asked questions that both of us have heard when it comes to the basics and the really important things that we need to focus on as we continue through this virtual this virtual trend, and really a trend that's not going to be going away for a very long time. So thank you for being here on camera.
I am flag too. If you
yes, you're sporting the Waist Up Wardrobe hat, and I appreciate that because you keep me on brand, and you know what, you are very much a part of the show. So thank you for that. So I think the best way to do this is, we have had many frequently asked questions, and I would love it if we can banter back and forth and have you get started with asking me those questions that you've heard from our audience about Waist Up Wardrobe. Now, I know there's a couple really main ideas that we have talked about at length when it comes to building out that basic, the foundation of your office. So can you tell me, can you go ahead and get me started?
Yeah, absolutely. There's, we've heard and talked about a lot of different topics in regards to Waist Up Wardrobe and how you appear on screen, both physically and mentally. And there's just a ton of things that we could share, but I know you wanted to break this down into very simple building blocks where people could start off. And that seems to resonate a lot with the people that watch the show that comment and wonder about these things, and we hear about that quite frequently. So what would you say is the most important essentials that you need to start a virtual office?
Yeah, so that is really been, and I've heard that question. You've told me that people are asking that, and I know I've gotten that in different forms. And the reason people ask that, I think, is because they want to get started. They want to spring right into action. And, but, to think about, multiple different things can be very overwhelming. So, what I tell my clients or members of the audience or anybody really that asks, how do I get started? I tell them you have to focus on three different things, three distinct topics that make your Zoom room really stand out in a positive way.
Yeah. And you talk about these as three building blocks, really three basic building blocks. So can you kind of get into that a little bit?
Yeah, so the three building blocks I view as anchors to your office. Those are the foundational pieces. The first building block, is what to wear and what not to wear on camera. That is really important, and that is so aligned with what I do in my work. So that seems always to be the key question everybody asks, and it is the one thing that makes you look really great on camera. If you're wearing the right thing, you look great on camera. You're not distracting the audience. So that is building block number one. Building block number two is all about lighting. So you could be dressed from head to toe, looking really perfect for the camera and looking, completely professional. But if your lighting isn't right, then you're kind of in the dark and nobody's going to see how great you look on camera or how professional you look. So that's building block number two. And finally, building block number three, which has been the main thing I've been working on with clients, is set design. And that is designing the set behind you to align with your brand. So that's three. So one, what to wear, what not to wear. Two, lighting. And three, set design.
So why do you think this makes them the superseding blocks of this whole Zoom room design?
Yeah, well, like everything else in life, you have to build a foundation. Whether you are, educating yourself from, A to Z. If you're learning a new language, you have to learn the alphabet. So think about this as the alphabet of being able to build on. So like anything else, you need a foundation. And the way you show up on camera, the first things people see visually is how you translate on camera from your wardrobe, what is behind you and around you as an extension of you, and of course illuminating all that, making it look right from a technical standpoint.
Yeah, and the whole thing here is we're not really focusing on the tech. That's certainly a component that can come down the road, but as people get started, these building blocks will help you present in a very professional, very well done way when you first start Zooming. So let's take them one at a time and first talk about what to wear and what not to wear on camera.
Yeah, and that is how I like to do things. I like to break things down into baby steps, into small nuggets that people can really benefit from the most. Make it super easy, because the idea is behind waistUPwardrobe, and really anything that I do to help a client, is easy, effortless, and immediate. People need to get started right now, and it needs to be easy and doable for them. So let's talk about what to wear, what not to wear. First, I'll start with what to wear to make it really simple. What to wear has a lot to do with not being distracting on camera. So you don't want to be wearing something that is dazzling or stands out too much. And why is that? It's because you want people to focus on what you're saying. And if you're wearing something that's distracting, their eyes are kind of focused everywhere else but on your message. So I always say, rule of thumb, when you are starting to get on camera frequently and you're building out that virtual office, think about creating a camera closet wardrobe. So basically a few items that you can have in your closet that can flex, that are perfect for the camera. And the first place to start there is pick things that are solid colors And things that have those universally flattering colors, like what I'm wearing, an eggplant blouse, or a blue or green or burgundy, those deep jewel tones are universally flattering. So that's where you get started when it comes to what to wear.
Awesome. I know you talked about the jewel tones, and I guess for me, I never knew what what that really meant, and so now I understand that the five colors that you or six, five or six, five colors that you outlined here are really what shows up good, because people take for granted what they wear on a day-to-day basis or professionally, that it'll translate well. But I know from the tech side that you can get a lot of weird artifacts wearing busy types of clothing or sparkly clothing and that. And you certainly, like you said, you certainly don't want to make that a distraction as you're speaking to your audience, right?
Right, exactly. And that is why that's important. That is why the focus of a beginning building block is really focusing on how you are showing up, because you're the main attraction here. Mm-hmm. People are listening to you. So, but they're not only listening, all their senses are at work here. They're everything that is visual, audio. So you are the main attraction. You have to show up right and professionally without being a distraction. So.
Right. Well, I know you have a number of men that also watch Waist Up Wardrobe, and there's a lot of things that apply specifically to women. But when you talk about the jewel colors, does that also apply to men as well?
So yes, it does. The colors that men wear does matter. It is a little bit different for gentlemen. So with women, I talk about jewel tones, and when I say eggplants or burgundies or blues or greens, I mean, those are sort of the basic things you have to think about, but it doesn't mean you can't wear a softer green, like a teal green or a Kelly green or something like that. But for gentlemen, it comes down to the suit, right? Wearing a black suit, which men usually wear, is too harsh for the camera. So you stay away from that and resort more to the navy suit or the brown suit or more of the earth tones. And that really helps a lot when it comes to color and men, what they wear.
Okay, well, that certainly makes sense. Now, I guess that'll kind of segue into the next question, because you started talking about it, but are there things that are not really good to be wearing on camera? Because I know for me and a lot of my family, we wear a lot of black. And it's just easy. It just looks clean. But I know sometimes you recommend that black's not probably the best thing to be wearing on camera.
Well, yeah, it isn't. And the reason is because it is, first of all, it comes off as very harsh. So if you're trying to build rapport with the person on the other end of the camera, it detracts a little bit from that. It is amazing what color psychology does from a mindset perspective. So that's one of the reasons black shouldn't be worn. The other one is that you kind of end up almost look like you're in a black hole, like a bobbing head, because you disappear in a way on camera with black. And it also, for women particularly, it tends to age them a little bit. So it's not the best, and not all women, but it really does depend. There's a custom piece. What I'm talking about here are the general rules. There are exceptions to rules all the time. And I don't really like to call them rules. They're more like guidelines, because there are exceptions. But if you wanted to do it safely and just do it yourself, not to consult an expert when you're showing up on camera, just remember, stay away from black and focus on the jewel tones that are universally flattering.
Yeah, I think a good rule of thumb or example would be, if you watch any television talent on the news or even on sports broadcasts, and you look at the colors that they wear on camera, it really reflects some of the guidelines that you're talking about here.
Absolutely. They are a perfect example for that. When you look at news anchors, you'll see they're wearing solids almost always, and they are really sticking to those jewel tones. However, jewel tones are not the only thing you can wear. I don't want anybody to think that, oh, is that all I can wear? No, there are variations. But again, my goal today is to give the audience those basic things that are do it yourself. You don't have to think much. If you stick to these guidelines, you'll be pretty safe.
All right, I just have to throw this in because of the way I look today. So, like I said, I always wear a lot of dark colors, a lot of blacks. I have a black shirt over my golf shirt, but I do have a red hat on.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Well, here's the thing. So we were talking about exceptions, right, to guidelines. I mean, I probably would have recommended you don't wear black because, you know, it tends to be dark, but you are in a world of technology. Your line of work begs that very casual, effortless look. And so I understand why that is your, you know, if you want to say, for lack of a better word, uniform type, you know, the collared shirt with, you know, the layered look. But yeah, I would say, you know, maybe invest in more of the burgundies, because the burgundy for men is also a really great color, or the navy blues, or the another blue. Those are really great colors for men and women.
Yeah, that's great. So let's talk a little bit more about patterns and what types of patterns you should stay away from when you're in front of the camera.
Right. So patterns for a general guideline are not a good idea. And the reason is simply they dazzle the eye, and they create that sort of artifact, or the you know, that kind of a moire effect that can be distracting. So generally, you know, patterns are not a good idea. For women, like a pattern blouse or pattern dress. For gentlemen, ties that have little polka dots or pinstripes or very fine little patterns that can really cause a little bit confusion for the eye are things to stay away from. So yes, the general rule is stay away from patterns.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us have seen that artifact on screen when someone is wearing the really fine lines, not the thick lines like this golf shirt, but the really fine lines. They start doing this funky circle psychedelic thing on camera, and that's just an effect of the camera. And so I know exactly what you're talking about, because it can start confusing the viewer or be very distracting to the viewer when they see this. Now, in addition to what patterns not to wear, we also have to be aware that certain colors that you wear, there's a psychology to the certain colors that you wear. They represent different mindsets or different thoughts or different moods. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, that is a little bit more advanced when you think about psychology of color psychology, because that's when you're really trying to fine tune what you're wearing. A lot of people, there is a psychology of color. So for instance, blue is a trusting color. So if you're in sales and you're going to be pitching something to a potential client, blue is a really great color to wear. In fact, blue is a great color to wear no matter what. It's the most universally flattering color because it kind of checks off all those boxes. It's a trusting color. It looks good on most skin tones and most colorings, and it is a very flattering color on camera. So and a lot of different colors have different psychology behind them. So black is harsh. Red is a little bit of an aggressive color. So not always the best color to wear depending on the environment you're in. So those things you do take into consideration. I think if there's one thing to remember is that blue is a trusting color. So it's really good if you are trying to build rapport with somebody or, pitch a sale or something like that.
Yeah. And we talk about Zoom a lot because that's the most common platform that everybody uses. And I know people love to use their little green screen things and backgrounds. And, we both have strong opinions about that, but they also experience this chameleon effect where if it's not done properly, you start sinking into the background. And again, that becomes distracting. So I know when you set up your clients and help them design the sets, you coach them specifically in the event where they really, really, really want to do green screens. They have to be really careful about that. So what is it that you tell them to help them avoid some of these problems?
Yeah, there's a couple thoughts on that issue. It's that background, right? First of all, you want to, no matter what your background is, whether you're using a green screen or not, you want to make sure you're not wearing the same color as your background. So let's say you have a background that's all black. You don't want to be wearing a black blouse. I mean, there's many reasons why you shouldn't be wearing black, but that's just to clarify the idea, the thought. If you have a background that is red, probably don't wear a red top or a red outfit. When it comes to green screens, the obvious answer here is don't wear green, because then you'll just be keyed out. You'll be blanked out. And again, all we'll see is your head, which would not be, it would look really strange, and it's not what we want. So I have a very strong feeling with green screens. I think green screens can be great when needed, but you have to be really careful. To use a green screen, and I know, Rick, you'll have a lot to say about this, you have to really do it right. I think lighting comes into it. So why don't I turn the tables on you and have you talk about green screens and how to really dress for that.
Yeah. Well, coming from a photography background, production, video production background, I know early on I used to do green screen because I thought it was really cool, and you had more flexibility in changing your set. But I found out very quickly that in order to do it really well, you had to have really good lighting. And if you don't have good lighting, contrast between you and the background, the Zoom and other broadcasting softwares won't key you out properly. And we've all seen those bad green screens where the fringes of your shoulders or your head starts sinking into the background, or if there's an ocean in the background, it almost looks like your head's just floating
right
in the water. So it can be a challenge, especially if you're trying to use a low resolution camera, like on older computers. The cameras that are inherent or they're built into into a laptop or an older computer just don't have the high resolution in order to really detect the edges, right, of your head, of your shoulders, and different things that sometimes you don't think about. So you may want to think twice about doing a green screen unless you have really, really good lighting.
Yeah. And so if we're really breaking this down for purposes of this episode of how to get jump started and how to get started, I would say green screen is not your first choice. You should not be using a green screen because that doesn't come off as professional if you really don't know all the details in doing that right. Would you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. There's just too many technical variables to consider, and every studio is going to be different. Now, in an environment like mine where I have full control of the lighting, my windows are blacked out. There's no outside light being influenced. I turned off all my incandescent lights that are in the room from my fan light, and I'm fully controlling it with LEDs coming here two from the front, one from the back just above my head, and of course the LED strips that you see there. I have much more control over that. Now, in this case, if I chose to do it, sure, then I would probably have a better result with using a green screen. But my thought on that is, if you really want to brand yourself, if you're a business owner, you really want to brand yourself to your audience, why not make your set that reflects your brand, kind of like what you have. We see all the mannequins and the different things that you have in the background there. Make it look like you're in your environment, branded to you. Yeah,
exactly. And the same with you. I mean, you're in a high tech environment, and we actually did a few adjustments in your background, and I love the way the background is. It's very high tech. It's very much aligned with your brand, and it's aligned with how smart you are, because you got Yoda over there.
That's right there. That's actually Grogu.
Oh, Grogu. Well, excuse me, because I'm not in the know when it comes to all these new movies and things that are coming out. But I can tell that it's a very smart evidence of a very smart character.
Yeah. Well, I know I've seen some of your before and afters with some of your clients, and they are amazingly stark in the difference from where they started to where they ended up. And I apologize if we don't have any before and afters to show the audience, but there's some, you go from just turning on your laptop that's on your desk to seeing the ceiling to all of a sudden now you feel like you're in their environment, their branded environment, because of how you've coached them and what you've done to make them look like a rock star on the camera.
Well, thank you for that. And I don't know if there's a way to maybe post those pictures we can probably post some befores and afters in the Facebook page for people to really see those amazing transformations. So that were branded really in a custom way. And I'll be talking about that, the customization of how to brand yourself as we near the end of the show.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about, should we go into building block number 2?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so building block number 2 I talked about was lighting. And, lighting is not something I'm an expert on, but I've learned a lot through the course of building Waist Up Wardrobe, the podcast, and through you, because you were the expert for that episode. But lighting is so, so important because, like I said, if you could have a great set, you could be dressed on point, but then if your lighting is not right, you can look like you're in the witness protection program because like you're dark and you're just like a figure moving around, whether it's dark or blown out, really lighting is very sensitive. So can you give us a little bit of a window into, or let's make it really simple, right? Because I want to wrap up first the building block number 1. The one thing I want the audience to remember is build yourself a camera-friendly closet. So really isolate some pieces that are solid, universal colors that would look good on camera so that you have that ready and easy to go whenever you need to be on camera, whether you're live streaming or broadcasting in any way or Zoom in your Zoom room to conduct business. So that is just sort of a summary of block number 1. Now, as we go into block number 2 for lighting, so important. It's so important. It seems like a very simple thing, but it really isn't. It is complicated, and Rick will shed a lot of light on that for us. So what is the one thing the audience should focus on, Rick? If nothing else, one thing that they should focus on when it comes to their lighting?
The one and only thing that you should really be totally aware of is how you look on camera. Is your face illuminated correctly? Does it reflect the contours of your face that makes you look good, right? Is it enough? Does it make your color of your face, the natural color of your face, look correct? And I'll give you an example. So when people first start with lighting, they frequently think that the incandescent lights from their room is adequate, right? And I know in a lot of the older houses, or even newer houses, they have incandescent bulbs that are very warm in nature, and they produce a very yellow tone on the skin. And that's not really flattering at all. It just makes you look like a pumpkin, I think, because you get that kind of orangish look to it. And you'll notice, and the way you can tell is if you hold a white piece of paper up, and if that white piece of paper looks yellow, well, it's probably getting influence from the incandescent lights. And so that's why in my room, I turn off all the incandescent lights, and I only have a couple, and I use daylight LED lights. Now they're temperature controlled as well, but I have two lights that are relatively daylight in color. So they are a little cooler, but it also allows me to see the colors more naturally, like you would see if you were standing in front of me. So I have 2 lights in front of me. Let me just do this because I can kind of show you what that looks like. So this is my overhead shot. I don't know. Can you see that?
Yeah. Yes.
So there's my studio shot. So I have one over here. That's my key light. And then one that you can barely see. It's a little dimmer, and that's my fill light. So I have 2 lights in front of me, kind of high and pointing towards me. And so that adequately lights my face. So you don't see a whole lot of shadowing of my face. It shows the contours here very nicely, slightly lower here than it is over here, but that doesn't have to be the case at all times. But this is kind of my desired look to have the 2 lights. If you don't have 2 lights, you can always use a ring light, and that's the next most commonly used lighting appliance that people can use. You have a ring light that's directly in front of you, and it's a little bit further away. And they have a lot of really good ring lights that work really well. just just really the only thing that you need to be aware of there is have it almost on the same line as your camera. So like if I had a ring light behind my camera, I would kind of have it centered maybe a little bit higher to illuminate the light directly towards me. And then you can make fine adjustments with the power output. And some of these, I think yours even has it where you can adjust the color temperature slightly. So your skin tones look like your skin tones, and they don't look yellow, they don't look blue, they don't look too overblown out. And so that's really important. So if you're going to use lighting, keep those tips in mind. If you're going to use natural lighting in your room, if you have great natural lighting from the windows, try and turn your position so you're actually facing the natural light, so the natural light spills onto your face.
Yeah.
That's the softest, most coolest meaning temperature wise, looking way that you can make your skin tones look natural and not have to spend extra money on other lighting.
Yeah. Well, so now that you say that, I have to mention that we still struggle with the light in my space because as you mentioned, kind of getting that incandescent light, getting rid of that and really getting that natural tone. I do tend to struggle between getting that right tone, but the challenge is that I need to add a key light perhaps. And, you called it a key light. And what was the other one?
Fill light.
Fill light to really get rid of the chandelier light that I have on today, which I don't normally have. But the challenge is really trying to figure out the lighting. It is not easy. It is not easy.
No, it's not easy. And the way, the camera looks at the overall color scheme, and a lot of times these cameras will automatically adjust for what it thinks is right, what it thinks the color temperature should be. And if you have a heavy influence of incandescent lights like you do up on your chandelier, those are very, very orangish or yellowish tones that influence the room. And then you have an LED light, ring light in front of you that are cooler. So now you have this fight between what the camera thinks it should see and what it does see, and it can influence the overall color. I know it sometimes. Well, that problem would be easily remedied by either turning them off or getting daylight lamps to put inside the chandelier. And then I know once in a while you'll also have your Philips Hue globes that help kind of color wash behind you and reflect some of the colors, maybe for the theme of the episode or whatever. So the more you can utilize LED lights, Hue lights, and get away from the halogens or the incandescent lights, the better. And the better your lighting will be, not only on you, but for your set.
Yeah. And so to make it really simple for the audience, right? This is a Kickstarter show. We want to make sure people can just get started and spring right into action. The one thing, if somebody needed to invest in, would be that front lighting, that ring light perhaps. And then they can always work on layering the lights, like adding more colored light like you have. Those are the Philips Hue lights. Or, changing around their set to really get that perfect lighting. But the key thing here to remember is that lighting is important and it matters. And if you're going to do nothing else, make sure you front light yourself. Is that correct? Would you agree with that?
There's no question about it, because you may not think it's a big deal, but the people watching you will notice, and they'll be saying, what's up with that person that looked like a pumpkin because of the bad lighting that you had.
Yeah.
Not that harsh, but you know what? You don't want them thinking in the back of their mind, why is the lighting so bad?
Right.
You want them listening to your message.
Right. And by the same idea is you don't want to have lighting that's too dark. I mean, I've seen so many people be on Zoom that they have shadows on them. They're completely left in the dark. And who wants to listen to somebody who's you can't even see their eyes. You can't see where their hands are. You want to be able to visually see, because we can't be in the same room with somebody. At least we want to be able to see them.
Yeah. That's right.
So that was the second building block. Let's move on to the third building block. And like I mentioned earlier in the show, the third building block that I am so passionate about, and it actually has been the subject of a lot of conversation this year with clients, is the set design. A lot of people have neglected their set, and it doesn't really help them. And the other thing is, the set can be an extension of your brand. You can speak your brand with your set. So that's the third building block, is how to align your set, your background. How do you decorate it to align it with your brand to help you speak your brand?
Yeah.
Don't you agree that's important?
Absolutely. And as you get into this topic of discussion, when you look at let me ask you this, when you look at a client, because I know you've done this with me and helped me clean up some of the things that I've had on my set. What do you look at first when you're assessing someone's set?
Yeah, well, the first thing that is really important to pay attention to is eliminating any negative things. So people don't realize that negative things in your background can really give an impression to people about you. So for instance, if you have a bed in the background, nobody wants to be in your bedroom, really, especially if they're a business associate, whether client or colleague or boss. Nobody wants to be seeing your private space, which is your bedroom. Definitely don't want to have an undone bed in the background. So really just eliminate that negative feeling of being in somebody's private space. Number one. The other thing that can be negative is a messy background, like a background with, shelves of papers that are just falling everywhere. That's not something you want to be showcasing behind you, because that says something about you. And if you're interviewing for a job on camera and you've got that behind you, it says that you are messy, and nobody wants to hire somebody that's messy. So the kind of negative things that you have to pay attention to that need to be eliminated. Step one, really easy step if you think about it and you're aware of it. So that the first thing is, be aware that anything in the background that's negative can give the wrong impression. So that's a first order of business when you're thinking about your background.
When you are assessing a client's background and the overall brand and that sort of thing, I know you're big about visually telling a story of who you are and what you're all about, right? So can you expand on that a little bit?
Yes. So that is something that I have been working on for a long time now, since the inception of waistUPwardrobe. It has been the biggest game changer for my clients and the people I've worked with on their sets. So the thing is, like I said, your background speaks your brand, or you have this opportunity to use it as your billboard to help you speak your brand. And Kristen Levine is here, and she's saying that everything in your background tells a story about you. It's good or bad. Exactly. That is exactly right. So you have to pay attention to it. So we can create a beautiful background by putting something great, very aesthetic in the back. And a lot of people can do that themselves. But when I work with my client, we take it a step further. We talk about customizing that background. We dig deep into what your business is, who you are, what are the things that express your brand without you having to speak about it. So for instance, if you are let's just take in veterinary medicine. So maybe their background gives the impression of pets or something related to the precious pets that you take care of. If you are an art teacher, we sprinkle in the background artwork of your students, perhaps. So this is the customization piece. I'm very committed when I'm working with clients to create a custom set for them. So you could put a great plant behind you and put a sign up that says your business name, and that could be adequate for people who want to do it themselves. But if you really want to make it special, if you really want to take advantage of the background and set it up so that it says more about you than you think to the viewer, like for instance, if pretend it's your window into your storefront. People, plan their storefronts and they make it express a certain look. So think about your background as your storefront, and how would you want to design that? What do you want that to say to your audience or the person you're trying to attract into your business? So if you think about it as your storefront, that is exactly what we do at Waist Up Wardrobe. I design sets not only that look great and feel nice, but they also speak an individual entrepreneur's brand or individual professional's brand.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, not only does that story convey your organizational values if it's done right, your mission and your credibility. Like you said, I mean, it's another opportunity to convey something that you really maybe didn't have a chance to do when you were talking on the phone, right?
Right.
So that's why we really have to pay strict attention to what's going on behind us and make sure it's congruent with what you're trying to portray or what your brand is trying to say.
Exactly. It always boils down to how do you stay aligned with your values, your mission, your brand? How do you stay congruent? It's a perfect way to explain it. And using your background, if you don't use it, it's a missed opportunity. I truly believe that it's a missed opportunity. There's so many things you can put into your background that can speak to your audience. So if I'm getting on with a client for the first time and I'm in my setting, they know that I do a lot of personal styling because they can tell by the mannequins. They see the aesthetic background. They feel a high aesthetic value to it and it's interesting. So then now they've already made a judgment that, oh, she kind of, it's interesting and she styles people and she maybe carries clothes. So there's so much that's going on in my background. People start basically subconsciously interpreting, which we can do, and I do for all my clients when we're creating something like that.
Well, it certainly builds credibility because instantly when a client for the first time sees you, you know, you're set up to portray the brand very, very well. Now, let me ask you this. So when people first get started, a lot of times they fear that I'm going to have to wreck the whole thing. I mean, I'm going to have to bulldoze the whole background and really do something, you know, to make it look like my brand. But that's not always the case, is it? I mean, sometimes it's really simple, easy changes or minimal changes that will fix a problem that maybe was present there before, right?
Yeah.
So I guess the question is, how do you identify those things, and where does one get started?
Yeah. So again, I'm going to fall back on the main idea that I always want to tell my clients about. And that is my mission is always to make anything I do for my clients or with my clients or advice I give them easy, effortless, make their lives easy, effortless, and fast. That's what people need. They need to be able to jumpstart right into action so they don't feel like it's an overwhelming task. So for instance, if I may use the example of your office setting, you really, you know how to, lighting, you understand all that. That wasn't an issue, but there was some minor adjustments we did. Like there was a poster that you could hardly see what it actually was. We took that down. We really enhanced the lighting and focused on the technology that you use. It wasn't very complicated. It was just minor adjustments. These minor adjustments made a huge impact. And sometimes it takes another person that's doing it every day to see the difference that it makes. So, it's not that you have no experience thinking about backgrounds or seeing other people's sets. It's just that you live in it. You're in it. So you need somebody from the outside that does it all the time to tell you how to do it. And that was easy.
Yeah, and your tips were great because I've always been, even from the day one from starting live streaming, it's always been an active experiment back here to try and figure out how to set design and what's going to look the best. I knew I wanted LED lights, but like you helped me take away the poster that was on the wood back here. I had some family photos that you couldn't even see, but they just made the wall look messy over here. Cleaned off a bunch of stuff off the shelves over here, and there's still some things that we're going to do the lights to contain those so they're not as visible, but yet take advantage of the LED lights. So very, very simple things. It took only a couple minutes to make that fix, and so it's not as complicated as people think.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's not complicated, but you really need somebody to guide you that has seen it and done it. Even though it might not, it's those little adjustments. I've been doing this over and over again with clients. I mean, it's part of my bones, really, just design and aesthetic and how things translate and how things tie in with what people do. That even though it didn't take a lot of time, it really was, it made a big difference. And sometimes you just don't know how to do that by yourself, or you don't really think about how, you're not aware of where to change things. But Kristen is also saying that she has a blank slate, and she really is thinking about, she doesn't know where to start. And so this is exactly a great jumpstart show for her and people like her, because blank slates are great. I love blank slates. We don't have to eliminate negative things. We can start fresh. So really, with Kristen, or somebody like Kristen who has a blank slate, think about those things that really express your brand. What are those things that really say, oh, Kristen is a pet influencer, or Rick is a technology expert, or he deals a lot with live streaming, so it has to be pretty high tech. So think about those things that are expressive of your brand, and use those as props in your background if you wanted to just get jump started and start doing it yourself. Otherwise, of course, customizing it is even better, and you can add layers and layers to it through the custom process that I walk clients through.
Yeah, I have a comment to that, and but I do have a question also, because I still photograph real estate property for clients, right? And one of the things that we make sure we try and do is to non-personalize the residence, because you have to make sure that whoever's walking through that house or looking at photos in the house, they have to be able to envision what it's going to look like with their stuff. Mm-hmm. And so how do you feel about personalized items that may be put into the set? Is there a guideline, or is there some thought that you might have about that?
Yeah, so I completely understand that idea of, if you're trying to sell a house and stage a house, you want to make it appealing to most people. You want to make it so that most people that walk through that feel like they can live in it. It could be them. They can make it their own. Being on your own set in your own Zoom is a little bit different. It is actually kind of the opposite. This is your space. Nobody's going to come in and take over your space. Nobody's going to be, teleconferencing from your very own personalized space. So to make it personal actually is the right thing to do. You want to make it so that it conveys your values. If you have personal items like pictures, if it's appropriate, use it. We took yours down because they just weren't, you couldn't see it. But if it was a big blown up picture of your daughter playing basketball, I would have totally put it there. Yeah, or volleyball. Yeah. So something you want it to be, people need to be able to see what it is and make it out. And putting in personal things in your background is a great touch, because it allows people to see a little bit who you are. And remember that basic cardinal rule about business. People want to do business with people they know, like, and trust. And to personalize your background and the billboard behind you gives them a little window into who you are, whether it's a family photo, or if you knit and you put up your work, or if you paint and you put up your work. Those personal things, those are like gold. Those are good things to do. So definitely, I would say yes on the personal items.
Yeah, I wasn't sure, because there's a lot of little knickknack. Before we started broadcasting your show, my shelves were super busy with little knickknacks that were close and dear to me, maybe not so personal to or relatable to the audience. But the problem was for me is that they were too small to see. I mean, every time I walk into my office and I would see it, like, it always brings up a thought. But on camera, because they're so small, that's not really visible, and it starts looking like clutter back here on the shelves, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So the number one rule, eliminate negative things, and clutter is negative. And if somebody can't make out what they're looking at, that ends up being clutter. So like I said, if it was a picture of your daughter playing volleyball or something, an action or something like that people could actually figure out what that was, that would be different. But the number one rule is eliminate clutter. And not to say that personal pictures are clutter, but if the viewer can't make out what it is, then it means nothing to them.
Yeah. Well, this is all really, really excellent information. And this isn't the first time we've talked about all this stuff, because you can always go back and look at the episodes. In fact, we're going to drop in the episode numbers after the show, so you can go back and refer to those shows, where you can specifically go back and listen to some of the expert advice that some of our guests and Christine talked about in particular, in specifically to the topics that we're talking about today. So here we are at the end, and we need to do what we always do, and so I'll leave that up to you.
Yeah, Waist Up Wardrobe Weekly Wrap Up. So to wrap up this episode, that really is a summary of the main 3 shows that we've had on lighting, what to wear, what not to wear, and the design of your set, aligning that background with your brand. Those 3 shows that are your key building blocks. So if you listen to nothing else over again, listen to those 3 shows, and Rick is going to be dropping the numbers of those shows. But remember, it was lighting, it was what to wear and what not to wear, and it is the show on aligning your background with your brand. And we will be dropping the numbers in the chat box so that you can refer to them easily. And I just want to say that get started. And to get started and to take action right away, start by listening to those 3 shows, because they'll go more in depth and more into detail on these 3 things. And that will make it really easy for you. If you're trying to design your set yourself, do it yourself type of way, then you want to listen to those over again. And here's the thing, right? We keep those 3 keys in mind, and this is and start there, and always reach out to me if you have questions. In fact, I have designed a very specific kit for my clients that a lot of people have been taking advantage of. It's called the Waist Up Wardrobe Kit, that gets you jump started into action right away. And it is a custom process whereby I work with you on these 3 blocks, these 3 building blocks. I go through the whole system with you. I help you figure out what to wear, what not to wear. I help you design that set to align with your brand and really use the props that reflect your brand. And I talk about lighting with you, and we get you layered with the right light. So I do that in a custom way through my Waist Up Wardrobe Kit. But if you want to do it yourself, you absolutely can get started by listening to the 3 shows and maybe even listening to this one over again as a summary, and get started doing it that way. But all I want for you is that you get started, because we have this opportunity to use the Zoom room as a way to say who we are and speak who we are. And the Waist Up Wardrobe podcast is all about everything that goes into this box, this Zoom box, when you're talking to your audience. So it's not just about the clothes. It's about everything goes into this Zoom box. And with that note, I just want to say, next week, as we start off a new year, we are going to be kicking off with a lot of episodes, a series of episodes on mindset. You know, your mind is above the waist, and your mind has a lot to do with how you do business and how you work in your personal life and what you do in your personal life. So next week, we're going to be having a very special guest who's going to kick us off with this series about, you know, how to think, how to get your mindset right in business or in your personal life. And he'll be talking specifically on mindset. What is mindset? Why is it important? And he'll be addressing all the issues, all the details that come up around that. Then followed by that, we're going to have a series of mentors and coaches that are in business. They know what their people in business are struggling with, and they're going to be talking on how to get your thoughts right, how to pivot, how to build the business and scale. There's going to be so many topics that have to do with your business mind. So join us next week as we kick off this new series specifically dedicated to your mind that is definitely Waist Up Wardrobe, and also invite a friend.